Well, hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. Sorry about the delay. Had some technical issues. I thought I would talk about in recent events in the tabletop role playing community. Now, I'm a bit late for today and today's topic and some other topics we will talk about throughout the week. But today we're going to talk about a bit of the commercial corporate side of a thing that has happened recently, and that is the return, or shall I say, even um, the rejuvenation of a brand known as White Wolf. And sometimes World of Darkness, White Wolf, and Vampire the Masquerade are kind of combined. Uh, hey, what's up there, too? Synergistically, and it's kind of a microcosm of other things we've seen in tabletop role-playing games, but a lot of times when we get all the politics involved and all of the drama on the inside, is the game still relevant? And I say, spoiler alert, yes. So we're going to talk about Vampire the Masquerade, its return, air quotes, sarcasm maybe, and yeah, there I am. Everywhere I go, there I am. We'll talk about that. Anyway, let's get past the intro and delve into the return of White Wolf games, World of Darkness, and Vampire the Masquerade. Hello again. I I have to admit that I'm a person of a certain age in the tabletop role playing community that was introduced to Vampire the Masquerade when it first came out. And it was extremely transformative in the tabletop role playing community. It embraced and it created and embraced an element of tabletop role playing games that was very anti dungeon delving and fantasy, um, in the classic sword and sorcery element. It really came in from the outside, and I dare say doubled the number of people who were interested in role playing games because um, it really allowed people to tell the stories in a way that never fit into the classic Tolkien adventurous wizard, thief, cleric, rogue um, archetypes that happened at the time. And Vampire the Masquerade, the first book within the World of Darkness. In the World of Darkness, you get to play a character within a gothic horror theme, vampires. There was a separate mage book for wizards of sorts. There was a werewolf book and a changeling book for fae, and even one of my favorites, which was a book about wraiths and ghosts, and you could play them. And there were many other books that were attached to it. Now, over time, because of its heyday, the corporate part of that started to grow, and it it had a lot of fires. It had a lot of pots boiling in the fire, and between each of the brands, the heads of each of those different brands under the same label. Although then they tried to combine it together, and then different. They tried to break into video games and card playing games, and then that separated, and then different people, of course, left to go off on their own because of contractual issues and other things of that nature, along with um, expanding book line that was just about overproducing one book for another book and another book and another book, and um, the the politics of the people that were in charge of it, their personalities, their affiliations, and some of the background material that was used for Vampire, which uh, became very problematic as well because they were using like stereotypes of people around the world as a thin veil for vampiric machinations and so on. And then, of course, um, uh, every business deal wasn't successful. Many of them cost a lot of money and or did not live up to the hype that they were suggested, which means that sometimes people want to hand things back and there's no one there to hand those objects back to. So long story short, it all returns back to White Wolf being a publisher that owns World of Darkness, which became its own publishing head, now back under White Wolf. And then we have our original game, Vampire the Masquerade. Woof. Hello. Oh, yeah. World of Darkness equals dungeon delving? Yeah. Now that you mentioned it, wouldn't it be hilarious to have the proud Ventru on a Gygaxian crawl in a dungeon that doesn't make any sense with rust monsters and gelatinous cubes? It would. Well, where would be the space for like the emo staring at a skull and navel gazing, and the emo, I am living with my dark self. Yeah. Yeah, dude. Yeah, we were talking about the mid-late 90s White Wolf IP. Damn, we have played a lot of games in the past 30 some odd years. Yeah, it's already, hey dude, it's already, let's see if I can pull out. I did pull it well. So this is my original Vampire the Masquerade book. I think there's even still a red fruit punch stain still left in it or something like that. But I mean, it's dog-eared. The side is starting to split, man. Yeah, and we had some fun with this, and it's so anti D&D that a lot of people like gravitated toward it, especially those who are notoriously like I would say like contrarian in the way that they enjoy their games, because it really does not lend itself very well to the various tropes, like fantasy tropes of like sword and sorcery, dungeon delving. I mean, maybe going into basements or something like that. Sure. Did it have other monsters in it? I guess if you scraped off the, scraped at the bottom of the barrel. But I will say, like, yeah, the old school vampire game still holds up. And I dare say that there were so many communities that came up because of the vampire game. Some people really embraced what I'm going to call, some people became lore canon hoarders. They absorbed every novel, every book, read between all the pages and the lore, and how the books were written from different points of view based on what clan you were from, what bloodline you were from, what history was happening at the time. And some things were contradictory that they left in the game as far as like the canon and the history and such. And so there was a huge group of people, used to be, there is a huge group of people that have devoted so much time to the canon that they are resistant to any changes whatsoever, no matter what happened. And then we also have the metagame. Now, Vampire the Masquerade wasn't the first, but they were the biggest one at the time. Not Vampire. White Wolf incorporated a metagame. And the meta narrative in the game was that as the games were being produced and you purchased the books, a rolling storyline was happening. That things were happening in the background with the most ancient Methuselahs and antediluvians and the vampires that would awaken one day and slaughter all the younger vampires, which were the ones we were playing. And following that storyline up until the game world literally ended, and all of the World of Darkness books came to an end, literally and figuratively, both in world and outside the world. And the publishing company ended the line, changed the rules, and made a whole brand new game, starting with Vampire the Requiem. Now, it's a little, it's dramatic to have like, hey, I purchased, 37 of your books, and you decided to end the game, thank you very much, and moved on. And there were a lot of people that were pissed. But yeah, Malika's very, very right. It definitely holds up. And one of the reasons why I think it holds up is because of a thing that I'm going to say that's going to slap a lot of people in the face that are fans of this book, of the vampire book. This is my original book. Picked this up at half price bookstores here in Columbus, Ohio. And it's a hardback version of the thing, cleaned up. A lot of language was cleaned up. The tone was smoothed out. This was definitely written at a time where you could kind of publish on like self-publish, and it didn't really meet the margins, and the quality of the printing wasn't good. The book was good, but the printing wasn't good, so they had to re-release it. And there's many versions of it. I believe there are past 5 editions now. Yeah. The Camarilla or Camarilla, depending on which side of the pond you want to pronounce it from. The Camarilla surely must have a dungeon for the most flagrant masquerade violators. Yeah, why not let it be a veritable tomb of horrors? Exactly, right? I mean, yes, you can get away with it if you really frame it a certain way. You could get away with dungeon delving, but it didn't lend itself to that. So I'm going to share out a character sheet and a bit of brilliance in terms of how they create the character sheet. And what I love about the character sheet is, for the most part, like 80% of the character sheet is like storytelling fuel. Uh, it Vampire the Masquerade, and we're going to focus on that. We're not going to really go into the werewolf book and the mage book and the ghost book and the fae book. We're not really going to go into those and many of the other games that came out. There was even one about demons and angels, and you played a demon and whatnot. But anyway, what I love about the game is that it made sure, first of all, it told you straight up, you're going to play a badass. So in this world, in this game, back in ye olden days, was it like the mid to late 90s? Maybe 2000s. When was the game produced? I normally don't like to pause like this too much, but I'm going to look at the first page. When is the publication date? Mark Reinhagen, 1991, early 90s, 1991, original book. So it's been, wow, yeah, 30 years. Whew. Great game. And one of the things that really set it apart was that it told you straight up, you are going to be a badass. In some games, superhero games kind of did that. Depending on what level, you had street level and then like, god tier superheroes and things, everything in between. But a lot of role-playing games were more or less zero to hero games. For the most part, you played like the Luke Skywalker of the world in many role-playing games, and that was the expectation. You were a farm boy, and maybe you had some talent that you didn't know about, and you went from zero to hero. But Vampire kind of broke the mold and was like, no, you're actually a being of darkness. Remember all those really great things you saw in all those vampire movies? Yeah, that's you. So it started out that way. Now, whether it lived up to that or not, that's a different story. But it told you that. And then it then proceeded to basically, let me put the character sheet back up here. It then proceeded to basically tell you from the top of the character sheet to the bottom, remember when we told you were a badass? Yeah, not really. Everything that you're going to do and have, it has a cost. And what we, Malika and I and our friend group, and when Vampire first came out, one of the best things you could ever do is ignore all the canon. I can't tell you how much freedom. Yeah, Spook. Yep. You are the monster, I believe was the original pitch. Absolutely. And it was one of the first few games that basically set it on the box, right? Like if you played a superhero game like any of the Marvel or DC games, we knew about comic books and graphic novels, and we knew that Hawkeye or Green Arrow wasn't going to be as much of a badass as Green Lantern, or who's the Marvel equivalent? I don't know, Iron Man, or Scarlet Witch or something like that, right? We knew that, but for the most part, that wasn't really on the box, right? It was like, hey, you get to play a person from your favorite movie or your favorite comic book, but most of the games weren't like, oh, by the way, you can also make up your own. This was right on the tin, and there has to be something to be said for like playing the monster. Yeah, your Spook Blue agrees with me. Yeah, you have to ignore that canon. And listen, there are a lot of Canonites. I don't know if that's a real word, but I'm gonna make it up. There are a lot of Canonites that really, I mean, they embraced all the history of the different clans of the vampires and their leaders and the world cultures that were involved in it. And some of it was borderline. I would dare say, Vampire made the same mistakes Dungeons and Dragons made throughout its corporate history. Maybe in a smaller time frame, but the same thing, passed from hand to hand, had different editions of the game, had people designing the game that eventually some of us may or may not have agreed with in terms of their personal lives and their politics. We had uh, things inserted in the game that they had to come back and take back because they were using real people and their real cultures and such. Yeah. Malika says, yeah, Vampire embraced the anti-hero, dark, brooding, gothic style of the 90s. Absolutely. And, man, how many leather shops and oiled cloth canvas jackets, ankle-length canvas jackets were sold in the 90s, dude? Man, the number of boots, dark boots with like silver clasps on them, and like the metal toe kicker plates, and the dark jackets with the what were they called? Australian drover jackets that were sold back in the day. There's still people that still have those jackets now. I don't have any of mine left, but I had one for a short time, man. It was there were man, ankle length dark leather. What was the place called? Wilson's. Those of us on the East Coast in Philly, the tri-state area, knew Wilson's. Wilson's was like the leather shop you could smell from 2 blocks away that had all like the shorter mid-length, knee length and ankle length leather jackets and stuff, man. Yeah, Shice is like, same mistakes as TSR? Did they have all sorts of top level managers who went on power trips and ran the company into the ground too? Yep. Yeah. I mean, for lack of not getting into too much description, same thing happened. It got big quick. There's a business terminology of get big quick, GBQ, and getting big quick is like when you have a startup. You gotta when you're hot, you add fuel to that fire and you get big quick. And many heads of the different books wanted to do their own thing, and then the designers their heads got big, and then they went on their own way because they felt like, I'm not getting credit. And then yeah, you remember, you can right now when I say Wilson's, you can smell the place. Not bad, but it was like it had that leatherite smell. Remember all the wallets with the chains, the billfolds. I'm going to call them billfolds. They were like the double length wallets where you didn't have to fold your money in it, and it had the chains attached to the hip and stuff like that. I guess it was based on like motorcycle riders, but then everybody in their goth grunge dudes and goth dudes were wearing them all the time. And the ladies really embraced it with like the knee-high thick shit kicker boots and the mini skirts with the ripped I don't know, pantyhose or something. I don't know, it was a whole fishnets and all that. Man, there was so much black eyeliner and black fingernail polish sold at that time. But whatever. But we got past that. And Malika and I, we're from Philadelphia, and we just embraced. We were just like, we love the Franklin Institute and the Art Museum, and we have a lot of history in Philadelphia, at least on the East Coast. And we just embraced it in our vampire games. Like, it was like Yeah, the art museum has to be Elysium, where all the vampires get to hang out and talk about their politics, where there's like a no violence thing, and we have Penn's Landing, and of course there has to be like human trafficking and drug deals and what do you call those places? Blood banks and things like that. Of course, South Street was the counterculture area of the city at the time, and bohemian and whatnot, and of course that had to have storefront witches and warlocks and alchemists and apothecaries and things like that. Like they had like a dark turn to it, and that was really part of it. So here in this character sheet, sorry, I know it's up here. You're just like, why does he got a character sheet up? He's not talking about it. Okay, so the very top of this character sheet is where we start our conflict. Vampire the Masquerade was a masterclass in creating conflict that you could borrow from and use for any role-playing game, but especially Vampire the Masquerade. So over here on the left, we've got your name, the player, so the name of your character, the player playing them, and the chronicle. And the chronicle is like the name of the story or the novel, I guess, if someone were to write down, like if a person had a diary or there was a third party that was writing everything down, what would they call it? And that would be the chronicle. Your chronicle also embraced like, what reason are a bunch of damn vampires hanging out together, and why would you do it? And that began your first delve into conflict, because any choice the players made is why they're together. I think they were called not a circle, not a covenant, oh man, what was it called? A coterie or a coterie, a bunch of people that gathered together that have like tangential reasons to be together, and that would be your chronicle. And any choice the players made, there was built-in conflict. Like, were they together because the prince of the city, the head vampire of the city, died, and now the players are put in that position? Are they all together to uncover a dark conspiracy in the town? Are they the good guys hoping to make sure that humanity is never overrun by the dark forces because there's a dark curse over the city that you live in, and they're protecting them? Are the players power players, and the city is run by the most powerful of vampires, and the players are all working together to take them down because they're under the thumb of a totalitarian regime? Is the city overrun by hunters and everything that knocks in the dark? Hunters, Cthulhian horrors, ghosts, werewolves, transformations, and curses, and all the things that you've ever read in horror books. Is it running rampant in the city, and the players are the ones that are just trying to survive? That kind of thing. Also, the title of the book was called Vampire the Masquerade for a reason. And the reason was because vampires had to keep up the masquerade. They didn't want humanity to know that vampires existed. And that in and of itself, because let's be honest, a lot of players are like, F all the rules, I'm gonna do whatever I want. And very quickly, if you play the game by the, dare I say, by the rules of the setting, not the rules of the dice rules and mechanics, but like if you played it straight and players decided to go off half-cocked and whatnot, very easily they realize like it's a big mistake. And when the public finds out that there's vampires, so many things happen, from police and fire and medical, and you get the CDC involved, and then you get the federal government and FBI and the National Guard, and you get all the side cloister people, the oracles, the psychics, the wizards, the conspiracy theorists, the vampire hunters, and all of a sudden now they start hunting all the vampires around the city, and then all the vampires blame you because you were an asshole. Yeah, instant conflict, and we haven't even gotten into like stats and stuff. In the middle, we have nature and demeanor, and your concept. Nature and demeanor, really great way that they really that the game redesigned what alignment is. So you get to pick from a list for your nature and demeanor. And yes, players could pick identical words, but put them in different places for your nature and demeanor. So your nature, of course, is what you are on the inside. That's not going to change. But your demeanor is how you present yourself on the outside. And yes, you could be a hypocrite. And actually playing a hypocrite is actually kind of fun in this game in a strange kind of way. You could be a very nice person or caretaker, which was an actual choice as a nature. That's you on the inside. But your demeanor could be something like bestial or a bully or arrogance or whatever on the outside. But really on the inside, you're like you're a nice person or whatever, or try to be anyway. And so again, conflict. And the reason why it was better than alignment was because no one was forcing you to portray your nature or demeanor. But down lower on this character sheet, you had something called willpower. And if you played into your nature and demeanor, you regained willpower. So it was like there was a mechanical reason to portray your character the way they were, even if it was contradictory or put yourself in a bad position or something. Of course, your concept was like, what kind of character are you? Are you a business person? Are you a stay-at-home mom? Are you a kid running in the streets? Are you a gang leader? Whatever your concept was, belly dancer, con man or musician or something like that. And then off to the right here, we have clan, generation, and sire. And of course, whatever clan you picked had built-in conflict because, like high school, when you picked your clan, it was like picking the group you were supposed to hang out with when you went to high school. And so on one hand, you felt the safety of hanging out with like the geeks, the nerds, the jocks, the goths, the band, the drama kids, the delinquents, whatever. You also were just like, but I'm not like them. And no one wanted to be ostracized out of the group because everybody else thought you should be in your, go play with the jocks because you're a jock person. And the jock is like, but I want to play music, and they didn't fit in. And look how many movies, John Hughes movies were made about that kind of thing. Generation was a numerical thing about how close you were to Cain. So the lower the number, the more powerful you were for your generation. And yes, you could. Normally you start out as 13th generation. Unlucky number, get it, right? And then you could use points to move up higher. And then, of course, your sire. Who made you a vampire? All this was just pure story conflict. Was your sire good to you? Did they train you well? Is your sire still alive? Is your sire someone that's famous or infamous? Are they nearby? Like you can go to them and get, words of inspiration, or are they captured? Whatever. Did they commit some great crime against vampire society? Blah, blah, blah. Were they powerful or insignificant? Did they tell you a lie about why you were embraced and became a vampire in the first place? Whatever. Here's the middle. Here's where we talk about just numbers. And these are dots. They use the term dots. Kind of a weird way to use dots. I would have used a different terminology like levels or ranks or circles or something like that, but they use dots. It's not bad, but circles just sounds like official. Like you could hear someone with a pseudo-European voice like, yes, you are third circle, performance or politics or whatever. But anyway, none of your attributes at the top, the 9 here, like got 3 physical, 3 social, 3 mental. None of your 9 attributes was written in stone that it applied to any of your abilities below. So you could make a charisma plus larceny or medicine or politics or leadership role, but maybe it wouldn't be charisma. Maybe manipulation would be more effective, or appearance even. Your mental attributes, especially like perception, intelligence, and wits, could combine very well with nearly 90% of anything from your talents, your skills, or your knowledges. And something not really often noted in the game. I'm going to get to your comments in a minute. Um, Talents are natural, and everybody's got them, whether you got a dot in it or not. Skills were things that people could do anyway, but you got like a penalty to it. And then knowledge is you couldn't do it if you didn't have it. I don't think many people abided by that rule, but I remember seeing it and I was like, oh, even I forgot to do that. And then we get to the bottom of the, more or less the bottom of the character sheet, but I'm going to get back to your comments here. Here we go. Malika says, what I loved about the Vampire IP was that it set the rules and great world building from the description in the game mechanics. Yeah, the game mechanics, it was one of the beginning games that had the game mechanics side by side with what was in the world. So let me see if I can put, sorry about that, Em. Let me put the character sheet back up here. So, for example, in the game, like we talked about humanity, like, you know, you're a vampire, you have right here in the middle, or middle bottom. Here we have like humanity or your path. Like if you're going to be a creature of darkness, you're going to be fighting against doing the bad thing, literally drinking people's blood. That's not a good thing. Versus like keeping your humanity or a path of humanity that would keep you sane, living, you know, eternal life. Very similar to the Highlander series, where you had characters that were living forever, and some of them were, well, you know, going a little bit insane from being immortal. And so how do you keep your humanity about you? The disciplines were the vampiric powers. You notice it's kind of cool, but different, that they don't really give you a lot of space to describe them, because the disciplines kind of describe themselves in many ways. And the disciplines were your classic things like controlling shadows, or being very alluring and charismatic, or having the dominance where you just stared someone in the eye and you could dominate their willpower, you know, or vampiric speed that we've seen before, or vampiric invulnerability where they can get shot or stabbed and they don't bleed or anything, they just smack people away. I think potence was the strength, and fortitude was the invulnerability, and celerity was the speed factor. And then of course we have backgrounds. Backgrounds were all the things that your vampire had related to the world they lived in. Contacts, wealth, a hidden location to you know, fall into the sleep of death during the daylight hours. You know, various types of equipment that you might have had, or magical devices, or strange objects, or cursed items, or something like that. And then of course we have our virtues. And in many ways, the in-world of the game, characters would talk about these things with each other, because basically vampires were drug addicts. Let's be honest, vampires are drug addicts. And let's see if I can move down to the blood pool here. And no matter what was happening, every vampire needed their blood pool full. And how did you go about doing it? Did you go the easy way and just attack innocent people in alleyways, or did you go to like the blood banks and deal with the brokers that had the artificial blood that wasn't as strong as regular human beings' blood and whatnot, and then being, you know, affected by all those things? And it's really kind of cool. Even like the merits and flaws could like make your character a little bit different. This game also had like a health. Let's see if I can just highlight just this one part over here. They even had a health bar, so it wasn't just like hit points. As you were reduced down, you would check mark off your health, like how far you were down, and then minuses were how many dice from your dice pool you were subtracted from it. Very simple, very easy. There was a part in the game where it was called a soak roll, so everybody had the same amount of health, but various characters had more resistance to being pushed down the health track. I think there's 7 levels to this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, yep, 7 levels. So an invulnerable, tough bruiser brick would have a very high soak and very resistant to moving 1 check marking one after another, whereas a character that didn't have any much protection would mark off 1, 2, or 3 in succession. And then at the very bottom of this character sheet gave you all the points that you could spend to make a character. So you could literally take this character sheet, and if you were relatively familiar with the game, you could go through after one character dies. You could literally go through and go, divide these points with your attributes, these points for your abilities, put 3 points into your disciplines, get 5 points into some backgrounds that you pick and choose. Your virtues, you put some 7 points, and then you had freebie points. You had 15 points, and then just like in order over here, you had to spend 7, 5, 2, or 1 point per point for between your attributes, abilities, disciplines, and backgrounds. Pretty simple. I mean, very simple, and we loved it. We loved it. This is the Vampire 20th edition of character sheet, by the way, but whatever. All right, comments. Let me go to comments because I've gone too far. Is it coterie? Shai says, "Hey, that classic goth look. I missed it in the 90s. Yeah, now I'm playing for that very same clique of people 30 years later. In the German dark electro scene of 50-something goths. I don't know. I don't know if you should be putting in like black eyeshadow inside of your crow's feet, but whatever." Malika says, "Dyed black hair, sideburns, 5 o'clock shadows, goatees. Yep. 9-inch nails, both the music and reality." Yeah, piercings. Anne Rice groupies, yep. Wearing black and leather in 90-degree weather. Crazy times. Yeah. Oh yeah, everybody wearing like the dark glasses inside. I'm looking at you, Tony. Dark glasses even in the middle of the night. Oh man. Shice, you're so funny. Come to think of it, I have a whole series of music videos. You're awesome, dude. Zeke Astrom says there's more than Vampire the Masquerade in the World of Darkness. Oh, no. I'm not making the argument that there isn't. we already talked about those things. This is a retrospective in many ways as the brand White Wolf kind of like coalesces back to its origins of sorts with a whole lot of like baggage attached to it that has nothing to do with the game. But I still think the game is worth it, despite the fact of having to scrape off the barnacles of its time and era and all the iterations it went through there, Zach. Yeah. I love Wraith the Oblivion. Wraith the Oblivion is like an unsung hero in this game setting. But yeah, Vampire isn't the only one, of course. Yeah, I know. Again, this game brings out like the canonizers, the mythicizers, the addition wars, the people who swear by the World of Darkness, which if we take one iteration of the World of Darkness, it includes all of the books and all of the setting lore and all of the canon and brings it together under one roof. So you could play like, there could be like 1 mage, 2 werewolves, and 3 vampires in your group, and that kind of thing. Yeah. Yep. Goth is coming back. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, like what's another political thing not political thing, but controversy that happened in the game that many of the writers have felt like they weren't credited for the writing that they did for these books. And there's a lot of books. And if you own the material and you copy and paste it because it belongs to you, how do you then credit the person that created it if you don't even have the information of the credit that it goes to, right? Oh, you're so funny. Yeah. Never went away here in Germany. Even the youngins keep getting embraced. That's funny. So anyway, with my support of this game, my suggestion is throw out all the canon, because all you're going to do is get a bunch of well actuallys hitting you in your DMs, and it's like, Well, actually, in 1994, they changed the canon to, it's like, no, no, no. And not only should you ignore the canon, and what I mean by ignoring it is use the parts that will especially make your game better, but also it's not really necessary for this game. I think this game, it's not really necessary for you to embrace an entire world, dare I say, multiverse of enemies and their machinations, because I think this game really runs at its best like a well-oiled engine, that it runs its best when it's very personal, when it takes place in your city or the city you choose, in your neighborhoods, with your players doing their thing in your setting for your plot, right? It's not about what happens, like with Malika and I, it took place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's it. What happened in the Euro Theater and in Asia and in the ghost lands and all that, it didn't matter. And not only did it not matter, that really wasn't the game. The game was player characters burning places down and running from the cops and trying to keep their, like, causing all kinds of harm, and then running back home and going, oh no, the sun's coming up. We forgot about that. And the police are on our tail, right? It is we are hunting in the hunting grounds of the rich and famous in, I don't know, Society Hill or whatever name, Chestnut Hill or Wadsworth or whatever, Jenkintown or whatever, Easton or Allentown or whatever you want to call it, in your own, or replace all those names with places that are familiar with yourselves in where you live, or at least a place everyone is familiar with, or they like to have their game run, and just do it there and make it super personal. Don't worry about big bads. Worry about like the unembraced siblings that the character has, the corporate business the player's trying to hold on to while being embraced, the jealousies that happen with the creatures in the world of darkness, and they're always talking about the players behind their back, and leave a lot of space for the players to be badasses, right? If they're going to bother to be creatures of the night, tempt the players by making them embrace the idea that we're badasses and we have no consequences. Just let them get away with things here and there, and then you just let the game unfold. Let them get away from, taking out, I don't know, the Triple Eights gang in one part of your city and leaving like a bunch of dead bodies, and the players have a sack full of guns and a suitcase full of money, and the players are like, yeah, and then all of a sudden now on the news, do a lot of segues where the news brings up things like crime wave has spread through, I don't know, the bottoms today, and police are saying, people should watch out and blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden the players go to their normal hunting grounds and there's nobody there, and it's like, why? People are scared. It's crime on the streets. Everybody went home. And the player's like, ooh, we don't have any hunting grounds any longer. And then the other vampires start looking into it, and they're like, who's responsible for this? Who took out that gang? I mean, yeah, they were a problem, but somebody got rid of that gang, and now there's a vacuum, a power vacuum of sorts. Who's going to step in? And that's just should be pulling shit out of my ass, right? This game is very much the idea of embracing consequence, and I think that is where this game shines. Forgetting all of the politics on the outside of the game, meaning like the people who designed it, where it went, who's the corporate head, who designed it. Unfortunately, you're going to have to forget some of that. There are some things in the canon as well that are problem, and I'm not just talking about the Romani, the Gypsy Romani controversy. I'm not even talking about that. There were some other elements where they kind of like layered the vampire clans and bloodlines over top of real world locations and people, and maybe a little bit too much, right? Like there were some clans that were like, this clan is literally from the Middle East, and this clan is literally from Mongolia, and this clan is literally from Africa, and you're like, yeah, I mean, hints, sure. Canon, like maybe you should have asked those people first. But that was an issue. I mean, listen, Dungeons and Dragons did that a lot too, so yeah, whatever. Yeah, Malika said, yeah, we made it personal and known to our surroundings with a lot of embellishments. This made the role-playing more challenging and fun. Yep, one of the things that the game really heavily suggested was to turn your world, the place you live, the place you go to work in and hang out, and your family and friends and things, take that place you're familiar with and then add that layer of gothic darkness over top of it. And yes, it could be a little bit chintzy, like, why are gargoyles on the side of that local mall, right? Or things like that. I mean, but having things knock in the dark, having it rain all the time, leaving it cloudy and foggy in places where it normally isn't, a little bit more crime, a bit more paranoia, a more acceptance of the supernatural, even if it's from people that might normally be seen as cuckoo. Those were things that you could layer on top of it. Heck, even the over-industrialization of a thing, adding a little bit more rust and grime, more homeless people, more saturated colors, darker colors, dingier colors, and you've got it. Yeah, and like Adamson says, yeah, thing is, cultures are regional. I didn't say they were. I don't think their implication was wrong. I think it was easy to rub up against people who are just like, that's not, yeah. Oh yeah, it was a big thing that happened here, Shice. Oh yeah, it was huge. There was nothing wrong with the depiction of mental illness in the Malkavian. Yeah. Like I said, yeah. Yeah. And they had some fun with it too, right? With the Malkavians. I think there was a Malkavian book that was kind of like the early version of Morkborg, where it was all printed backwards and upside down and written in the margins and stuff. I don't think I have a Malkavian book, but I might pull it out another day or something. But yeah, everybody wanted to play a Malkav, because you could just do whatever you wanted, or technically do whatever you wanted. Pretty cool. Yeah, the really cool thing was about the clans. Like each clan had its own known strengths and weaknesses, and yes, you could play outside of those strengths and weaknesses, but not very well, right? It was like the Bruja, taken from Brouhaha. But anyway, the Bruja were like the angry ones. They were the ones who were more likely to go into a frenzy in the game called a frenzy. Frenzy, your instinctual anger, fear, rage, and I like how some of the descriptions were like, never tell a Bruja they're the angry ones, because the first thing they want to do is rip your head off. They're like, I'm not angry. It kind of hilarious, it kind of hypocritical. I think if you embrace it that way, like there is a bit of hypocrisy in this game, and that the power players are probably aware of, but they don't care, and the middle players don't know it, and that makes it even worse. Very much today, how we have like hypocritical people's thoughts and feelings about things, and when you test them on their hypocrisy, their eyes roll in the back of their head because they can't stand it. Don't make me start naming them, but you get my point, right? Like it's like pick any socio-political foundation that someone has today, and I guarantee you there's a hypocrisy involved in it that they themselves would never want to admit to, let alone, pretty much piss them off if you even bring it up. But whatever, which I think is funny. I think Vampire the Masquerade and the growing, the other wider spread World of Darkness books that are out there are still worth it. I feel like it is a game that still deserves to be played. And the funny thing about this game, oops, I got my hand over the rose. The funny thing about this game is even the cover of this book, I mean, it was very much like the role-playing game for the Gothic Anne Rice reader, right? Like, there's no vampires on the front of this. It's just green marble and a rose. Like, really? That's the cover you decided to pick? There's no artwork on the back? But if you were inclined for this kind of storytelling, this book, this cover drew you to it because it was like a mystery. It was a mystery box of sorts. Like, what's vampire? And can you even read this? I guess you can. But I mean, like, Vampire the Masquerade? What does that even mean? And it just captured during the early 90s, mid 2000s, captured everybody by storm. So, oh shit. Adel, it says, given how many fake mental illnesses on TikTok, there might be an untapped market there. Oof. You know, it's pretty funny. I find it hilarious. It's like, you know, all the people, you know, all the TikTok videos and things like that of people having like mental breakdowns and stuff. It was our Harry Potter. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess so. It's so funny how, you know, how HD, like high definition, someone decided to turn on their phone or their high def Sony camera or whatever to then start to have an emotional breakdown. It's like, wait a minute, did you hold on to your mental breakdown so that you could get the right lighting for your TikTok video so that you could edit it correctly? So that you could get a 30-second blurb out there while you're crying and holding your blanket and I give some blah blah blah. It's like, yeah, I know the sun's coming up. It's blind. It's like it's blinding back there. There's a great documentary called World of Darkness on Prime, really, that breaks down the history of the game. Yeah. I think the game is worth it. I think it's it is not forgotten, but often maligned artifact of tabletop role playing, and I still think it's a great game. I still think it's viable today, old rules and new, and I don't think you'd go wrong with playing any version, even if you have the edition wars going on with people that are like, no, V20 is better than V5 and all that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think you could just have some fun with this game. And my feeling is make it personal. Only use what's necessary for your setting. Pick a familiar setting. Hometown, city, location. Get some real world maps in there and modify them. Think about like what the World of Darkness would be like if you layered it over your favorite places, like your favorite places from your youth or whatever. If there's a place in your town that's got like a lot of empty buildings, great, use that. Is there a place where there's a lot of industrialization happening that's building up? Use that. Is there most cities have like your top 6 or 7 known areas. Your drug infested place, use that one. Use your party world where everyone goes there to be seen wearing their best clothing and looking good. Nightclubs, use that one. There has to be an investment corporate location where there's nothing but office buildings and corporate attire and cubicles. Use that a lot. Pick about 3 good residential areas for your poor, your middle class, your rich. Use them. There's so many great places. What kind of warehousing district or what kind of what would I say, industry is located in your favorite town? Use that. Uh, M says, I love the different clans and their distinct characteristics, whether they were good, bad, or indifferent. They were unique and special to themselves, the genre and the time. I agree. Yeah, all of the. Let's see if I can. Let's see. Do I have it right here? No, I have to go back to this. Sorry, I'm going to take my. Well, you won't see it anyway. Let's see if I can. Oops. Let's see if I can do this one more time. Malkavians, mental. Oh shit! Bunch of Tumblr mental illness victim Olympics posers amongst their ranks. That's hilarious. Or would they embrace them so they can diablerize them later? Yeah. All right, posers. Yeah. Oh man, mental victim Olympics are so bad. Let me see if we get to the clans. Table of contents. Wow. Well, that didn't work. All right. Sex. Will it let me go there directly? Let's see if it'll let me go there directly. Here we go. I think this is the V20 book. So, sorry. There, some of you may or may not know all of the clans and the imagery or something if you have different books. I don't feel like. I feel like you can use any of the games, any edition, any way you like. I think it's pretty ridiculous to have like edition wars. It's dumb. I think that's pretty. Anyway, this is the background of the different clans and some of the like the Sabbat or Sabbat, the Anarchs, the Camarilla or the Camarilla, whatever. I know. I mean, hell, I'm sure there's a bunch of actuallys out there that are going to tell me how to mispronounce a word that's made up in the first place in a world that doesn't exist. But whatever. Anyway, here we go. So, let's see, can I do this? Should I do this a 2-pager? Yeah, a little bit better. So here we have the clans. And like I said, each clan has its own strengths and weaknesses, and their own. And sometimes, actually, the weakness part is actually better than a little bit, as far as like describing like who they are and what they're about. Why can't this move? Come on! I just want to use my arrows. Anyway, I guess they're not letting me do it. How many pages? 529 page book. Assamite, the Bruja, they're the rebels, the angry ones, or, I mean, they would tell you that they're angry. Passionate, I guess, would be better. Followers of Set, their vampiric physicality comes out like more like serpents. And I didn't think they would far enough with that. I was like, wait a minute, if they're going to be serpentine ones, why not pick a bunch of the other animalistic type of things? Like, yes, the gangrel are more closely related to the lupine part of the thing, but I was like, why not like rats and snakes and ravens and crows and insects like roaches or scorpions and things like, I don't know. I just felt like they could have gone a lot deeper. Panthers, maybe something like that. Giovanni. I think they could have embraced that part of it. And I understand, like, especially worldwide, you go further back in time, we didn't have a lot of cultural assimilation. Many cultures just grew up in their own region, separated by literally dozens of miles, hundreds of miles, and two cultures did not mix together. And so I think they were trying to come across as like, well, they're holding on to here come the Malcavs, the Malkavians. They're holding on to their culture even in a multicultural world, which again brings up the hypocrisy of a thing. Vampires that are old enough to remember a time where the blood mixing wasn't a thing, which is like, yeah, is that a little bit dark? Yeah, but whatever. The Nosferatu. can't really get away from being looking horrible and looking like a monster uh, by trying to play against type, but could very much hide as one, like hide with illusions and disguises and things like that. Beauty and the Beast falls into that one. The Ravnos is the one that had the highest amount of backlash because they were supposed to be like these nomadic vampires, and then they used a real world culture to kind of like shape uh, their cultural hallmarks. Whereas most of the, I guess Eurocentric vampires, they really kind of didn't do that. Like, there are no, like, I don't know, Viking vampires, or I don't know. I guess Toreador would be the closest to a stereotypical French Parisian or something, but they didn't really go out of their way to make it that way. Tremere, I suppose, would be close to, they're the wizards and the UK version of vampires, I suppose, although I guess Ventrue would be closer to that. Zemese, very much Transylvanian, and go further and further. Ventrue, then we'll get to the end of these and get out of here. Ventrue, the Blue Bloods, Rarefied Tastes. And that's it. At least this is for the main book. This is a 529 page book that I have, which is the V20 electronic V20 version, and they do go into many of the other bloodlines and the Sabbat and all that kind of stuff. But I just want to show that to you. And let's go back to the front cover and get rid of this. Yeah, I'm not really promoting this particular version of the book. I just wanted to let people know that it exists, and if you could pick one up real cheap, give it a look. Get your people together and see what it's like. World is back. Oh no, it never left. I think corporate wise, it's back. Yeah, there's a blast from the past. Good memories. Yeah, some good. There were some fun times, and it's fun looking back at it and not taking it too seriously. Where I'm sure there were people back in that time, like gamers and goths, that were like, "I'll never change." Now they're like computer programmers and like selling scented oils and all that kind of stuff. They're just regular people now. But at the time, pagan holidays, yeah. Graveyards, museums, Gothic buildings, religious institutions for inspiration. Yep. Especially those mysterious ones. Like in Philly, we had like Masons, like buildings where there were different chapters of the Masons, and we had. I'm just using them as example of like a historic, notable location with a mysterious goings on the inside, right? And you could very easily use that as fuel for your game. Like, I wonder why this business strip, even though people try to move into it, the businesses always fail. And then you can go, instead of making it economic, you can go, maybe it's cursed, or there's a ghost, or there's an ancient crypt underneath, the building center or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, why does the western part of our city flood all the time? Maybe there's something down there that there's a reason why it happens. All kinds of reasons. Malkavian struggling to find genuinely crazy people to embrace is a fascinating scenario. Yep. Yeah. One of the great, what's the book called? They have these by night books: Chicago by night, LA by night, New York by night, so on and so forth around the world. Tokyo by night was one. I think there was a Germany and a London, and there might have even been a Shanghai or Saigon, something like that. I can't remember which one. I could look up the list. I'm not going to do it. I'd rather be wrong. But anyway, the by night books were examples of how you can make your own city by night. I think there was even one, Laverne and Shirley. What was the city Laverne and Shirley took place in? There was a Chicago by night and a um, blank by night that took place in the city of the old comedy series, television series, Laverne and Shirley. Shamil Shamaz, Hassan Pfeffer Incorporated. What was it? Someone knows. Someone tell me. Anyway, you could take any city and make it by night. And one of the fun things in the Malkavians, I'm getting to a point, in Chicago by night was that there was this old black gentleman. You would say he was probably like, reminds you of a dude with very secret societies. Yeah. Very much a lot of minefield for that. Philly's a city, founded by Quakers. Was it Milwaukee? Milwaukee, that's it. Yeah, Milwaukee. They have an actual Milwaukee by night book, which is kind of fun because you're like, Milwaukee, why would you pick that? Why not like Miami? You know what I mean? Big towns. And I think they did that on purpose. I think maybe because they had maybe a lot of their writers, corporate headquarters might have been there, and also, you pick. What would for us in the United States? It would be like picking like Rhode Island by night, or some small town in Iowa by night. Like, what would that look like? And not that you couldn't do it, but it'd be like, well, that's different, I'm sure they did Las Vegas. I can't remember any of the other ones. I don't know if there's a Colorado by night. But anyway, the point of it was that there was and this older gentleman was a vampire in Chicago by night. And he was a Malkavian. And in the background of the book, he had a dual personality, did not know the other personality was acting, and had two completely separate factions warring against each other to take out the other one, because he was the leader of both factions, trying to uncover who the leader of the other faction was to take him out. Yeah, and Chicago was like major headquarters for them. Yep. They even incorporated some history. They incorporated, what is it? Helen of Troy in Paris as modern day people. Helen of Troy ended up becoming a temptress vampiric entity. And then Paris became a ghoul, immortal ghoul. And I think he was working as like a male model or something like that at some point. Kind of aimless, devoted to Helen or Helena, and devoted to her, but couldn't get away from her grasp, but wanted her to change. She became more despicable as time went on and stuff. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. Well, anyway, guys, I got to get out of here. Got to get to work. It's going to be a hot one today. Hot one this evening. Yeah, pretty big deal today. So you guys have a great one. Thank you very much for letting me reminisce a little bit here in our retrospective, and also talking a little bit about current events. For those who didn't know, the White Wolf moniker, the World of Darkness, and the Vampire the Masquerade are now under a single umbrella now, and going to be re-released probably in video games and books and things like that. Maybe even go back to the old card games. I don't know. But anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Everyone have a great day. Good time to reminisce and stuff and just have some fun and hang out like we do here, just before or after a game. So everybody have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.